Good evening. Malach the Maleficent here. It has come to my attention that this is the 100th episode of Morrus Unofficial Tabletop RPG Talk, a weekly podcast about role-playing game news. Oh, that means they've been making this awful show for... Is there 1, 2, 3... yes. No, I don't have enough fingers. Wait, I have a box of them here. Yes. So there's a 98... 99. Ooh, yes, 2 years. 2 years of dreary RPG news and cringeworthy skits. According to at least one charming reviewer. At least they have interesting guests on sometimes. Well, happy birthday, and here's to another 100 episodes. I won't be listening.
All the tabletop role-playing news. We aim to amuse and we aim to enthuse. And Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG.
Ahoy, 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 and welcome to Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG talk. I am Morrus, aka Russ. Or Russ, a.k.a. Morrus, and with me this week is...
Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Roleplayers. Russ, as ever, it is a complete delight to be here. But wait, there's an eerie presence has materialised next to us.
2 eerie presences.
They've just flown in from America, and boy, are their arms tired. We have the inestimable Shane Sachs, and of course, our amazing editor, Darryl Mott, has also joined us, because it wouldn't be a 100th episode without such sterling contributors.
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I have to say, yeah, we're slamming.
Cut Shane off on that one and explain.
Yeah,
Russ takes pleasure in any time we're on the show, making sure it's as early as possible in America, just to screw with us because we Americans always schedule stuff so late in the UK.
Exactly. Yeah, it's. It's retribution, is what it is.
To add to the fun, Darryl and I are both late sleepers, so we're a little slap happy right now.
Night owls.
Yeah, you can actually tell what time I went to sleep. Look what time I posted the News Digest column. 5 minutes later, I was out.
Well, some of us have been up running D&D to help people out.
All right then. So it's a special week this week.
Is it?
Today is our 100th episode.
Yay! Woo! Fireworks!
Yay!
For those of you that can't see at home, because you're listening to the audio, there's fireworks in our Zoom.
So many fireworks.
It looks pretty good. It looked pretty good, actually. Everybody's fireworks going
absolutely.
I don't know whether that could be edited into something that will look alright or not, but you know, we'll try.
We've got to find talent. Okay, look, people's expectations have been suitably calibrated by the previous 99 to 100
well,
episodes. If they're not...
Well, if we want to be picky, it's the previous 100 episodes.
It's true. We should be picky. It's the previous 100 episodes. This is just the 101st. But it's episode number 100.
Yes.
So this episode's going to follow loosely the usual formula. We're going to do the news. We're going to do a quick round of our favourite game in all the world. But the topic of the week this week is we're all going to pick, or we already have picked, something of interest to ourselves. And we're just going to, riff on that topic. There'll be 4 topics. We're going to riff on each of those 4 topics for, just a few minutes each, 10 minutes or so, and then move on to the next. So, you'll probably find out later in the show what those exciting topics are.
Whoop, whoop. Woo!
Hi, this is Dominic McDowell from Cubicle 7. Congratulations on the 100th episode, guys. Awesome stuff. Well done.
This is Craig Campbell from Nerdburger Games wishing the folks at Morris's unofficial RPG news podcast a happy 100th episode!
All right, so let's do some RPG news, shall we?
Good, can't we? Yes.
I think we shall. Yeah.
Who here is a fan of My Little Pony?
Sorry, guys. There's no judgment here.
I like the nostalgia that it evokes from my childhood.
Who here has heard of My Little Pony?
Me! I
got several friends that are bronies, but it's not my scene.
I have a friend who's a legitimate brony.
Fair enough.
And I bought him the My Little Pony D&D dice that Wizards put out a couple of years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is not a thing that I remember.
I know people who are very keen on My Little Pony.
Well, for those people that are very keen on My Little Pony,
Yes.
and they're also in the Venn diagram of people that are keen on Dungeons and Dragons,
Interesting.
in the centre of that Venn diagram, in the intersection of that Venn diagram, a toy store in Norwich, in Norfolk, posted a photo to its Facebook group showing a D&D themed My Little Pony set.
Is it? God, blimey.
So it's toys, but
Yes.
they're themed to D&D. Okay.
So it's a line called Cutie Marks. And they've done it before. They've done it for Transformers. They've done it for Power Rangers and other things that Hasbro owns. So, you know, D&D's just the latest in the line. And basically it's a box, and you get 5 pony models. It's not a game. It's a box with 5 pony models, and each one is based on a D&D class. And, there's also a custom D20 and a DM screen. And then the 5 ponies are a barbarian, a bard, a druid, a rogue, and then either a wizard or a cleric.
I think it looks like a wizard to me because it's a spellbook saddle bag.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Obviously, My Little Pony and role-playing games are not new. For instance, there's the Pathfinder conversion of My Little Pony.
There's Tales of
Tales of Equestria. That's the official one, which, ironically, Wizards of the Coast did not do.
And then the Pathfinder one is Ponyfinder.
Yes.
Yeah.
Probably Ponyfinder, yes.
Well,
And also, let's not forget the horror conversion of Don't Rest Your Head, Don't Rest Your Hooves.
Well, why not? I mean, because the beauty of modern role playing is that there is a flavor for everybody.
This is truly a broad church.
But I will say that I have heard very good things about the Tales of Equestria role playing game. Seriously, I mean, I've heard legit hardcore role players it's actually a pretty darn good role playing game. So
and also they also had an episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic that was the D&D episode, because that was the big thing around that time, was having the D&D episode.
The D&D
was
episode,
Dungeons and Discord, and Discord on the show is played by John Delancey, by the way, aka Q from Star Trek.
Q.
What do you know?
Well, if you are planning on rushing out to in-demand toys in Norwich, Norfolk, I assume other stores will also have it, but there is no release date yet, and the store has said they'll be available for pre-order soon.
Well, I bet you there's going to be some people hoof it to go pick those up.
Ouch.
I'm sorry.
Shane, get out of here.
Well, they want to get hold of them. They won't want to be caught out and not unable to do so.
Hey, you know Trudvang Adventures?
From
From
role-playing setting.
From the Swedish games publisher Riot Minds. It was the most anticipated game of the year, if you recall, a couple of years ago, in our countdown poll. So the Swedish ones always score really high. I think partly because the Swedish fan base is quite cohesive. Whereas, say, the American fan base is much more spread out. But Trudvang Adventures is the 5e version of Trudvang Chronicles. So it's
right. Okay.
So it's kind of Nordic myths and sagas.
So
It's Nordic Celtic.
Yeah. And they're launching a Kickstarter on May the 23rd.
So if I want to fight trolls and fairies in a pine forest, then this has very much got me covered, is what I'm hearing.
I guess so, yeah.
Fae, like real Fae.
Yeah.
Not like, Fae
D&D.
through the lens of, pop culture, but more real Fae. Yeah.
Ooh,
The Swedish games are always gorgeous. Like, there's 2 or 3 different, Free League do amazing, gorgeous stuff as well.
Yeah.
All those Swedish publishers just make absolutely gorgeous stuff. I don't know what it is about the Swedes that just makes them make such beautiful role-playing games.
It's just in their DNA somehow.
I guess so.
It sounds amazing. Looking forward to it.
You would expect their games to be cheesy, but they're not. I'm sorry, I'm still waking up. No, I'm not sorry. I'm going to own that. I'm owning it.
There was a new Unearthed Arcana from Wizards of the Coast. And they revisited 3 subclasses, which they'd visited long before. It was the Revived, and the Noble Genie, and the Archivist subclasses.
Yes.
They've revisited them with new versions, which they've called the Phantom, the Genie, and the Order of Scribes. Has anyone seen these?
I have not.
Yes.
I have.
Any thoughts?
So what do you think, Darryl? Oh, sorry. Say?
I was just saying, there's actually a subclass called Genie.
Genie.
Well, it's the pact that it's a warlock pact.
I gotcha. It's the pact.
Patron.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Patron, not
Right.
pact, but yeah, that's out there. You say, hey, you're a genie, and it's got like Merid and Dow and what's it, Efreet and
Efreet,
the other one.
Merid, the Genie, and Dow for the 4 elements.
Neat.
And what's kind of cool about it is it really ties into the way you'd normally encounter a genie. And like, here is where they live. Here's their, and then you roll on the table. It's a lamp or a ring or some sort of artifact. But then instead of, okay, my master, let me grant you wishes, like, hey, let's make a deal. Let's work together here. So you're running around like wearing the ring of the genie that your patron is in as a warlock. So your patron is there all the time.
I like that. You know, there was I'm going to riff just a little bit on this idea, but in DC Comics, in the crime syndicate evil universe, where there's the evil versions of the Justice League, Power Ring, who is the analog for Green Lantern, his ring actually had an evil entity in it, and they had to constantly argue back and forth, and he had to constantly try to use his willpower to keep this entity. It's called Volthoom. And so that's really interesting. You could have some interesting dynamics there, I think.
That sounds interesting. Yeah, I think it's by far the most interesting of the 3.
Well, you're not a fan of Unearthed Arcana generally, are you? So you say this is quite a strong one in your view?
The flavour of the Warlock is fantastic. Like this whole Genie Pact sounds pretty good. The Rogue, it's a bit overtuned for my taste. You get sneak attack, then half sneak attack in psychic damage to somebody else. It's like, that's a bit tasty. Like, I can see that being popular for nerfing, which is a shame because you don't really need to nerf rogues that much. But that's a lot of extra dice you're going to be rolling, especially at higher levels. And the wizard one is like, yeah, let's just make all spells cheap for wizards to copy. Doesn't matter what school they are. And then I sort of...
Yeah, I like it.
I can't remember.
This is the nerd of the nerds of the magic users.
Right.
This is the guy who's just constantly got his nose in a book. He can actually cast spells from his book using it as his spellcasting focus. That's the kind of wizards I like to play, is the really, really, really bookish ones who get thrust in these adventures. It's like, well, the only reason I'm out here is because I've got to do field research, damn it.
I think the rogue that you mentioned is like also doing psychic damage and whatnot. I wouldn't want that running
half sneak attack in psychic damage as well as regular sneak attack. That's a lot of dice.
I don't know if I'd want that in my regular setting, but there's certain settings where it'd be a good fit. Like I thought of Dark Sun. That might fit a rogue in Dark Sun, right?
It seemed to me like that was them riffing off of Dishonored.
Oh, okay.
Oh, interesting.
With they have their kind of pseudo magic rogue assassin as the main character in that. So they're kind of the same way they have the monk that's basically Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Temple of the 4 Elements.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if a lot of this stuff wasn't being informed by role-playing game or video computer games.
Well, pop culture.
Because there's like, speaking of Venn diagrams from earlier, there is a lot of crossover.
Yeah, people want to play things, and it's absolutely fine. I just find some things a bit overtuned. I'm like, that's probably going to upset the balance a bit, and I want everyone to have some share in the spotlight.
Hey, do any of you remember the role-playing game Twilight 2000?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
From the 80s.
First game I ever played where individual areas had hit points. Like your arm had hit points and your leg had hit points. And
so I have not played it, but I'm aware of its existence. And this was by Game Designers Workshop originally, wasn't it? Back in the 80s. So there's a new edition coming. It's going to be the 4th edition of Twilight 2000. And this is going to be by, going back to the Swedes, is going to be by Free League.
Well, then it's going to be beautiful.
Yes.
That post-apocalyptic landscape will be beautiful.
Yeah. I mean,
it's like Free League and Modifius are competing to see who can have the most titles out at one time.
They have started. They've started coming up, haven't they? They started getting quite a few of them. They've got Alien recently. What else have they done recently?
What
Mutant
is
Year
Free
Zero,
League about?
which Mutant Year Zero, they're using the same system for Twilight 2000.
Yeah.
Is it a post-apocalyptic game then?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's after World War III.
You're basically now it may change now, but back in the day, you were basically a squad of soldiers after the collapse of everything.
Right.
I mean, we were, I remember playing where like you basically got like an M16 and a Humvee and it's like Gamma World without mutant, without the
Fallout
extra.
played straight. No, none of the satire commentary.
So it's a post-Cold War.
The Cold War turned hot. The Cold War turned hot, and now this is what's left.
Like
Go ahead. Do any of you guys know what the Mutant Year Zero system works? I'm not super familiar with it. So Mutant Year Zero powers forbidden lands. Oh, it's the Alien RPG. Okay, I know how the Alien RPG system works. It's the same system, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. And then then they have a hex crawl on top of it for Mutant Year Zero.
That seems to be an important part of it.
Well,
I've had it played at the club. I didn't get the chance to, but people spoke highly of it. So yeah.
Well, this edition, it's set in a year 2000, devastated by war, in a alternate timeline where the Moscow coup of 1991 succeeded and the Soviet Union never collapsed.
Yeah.
Sounds interesting. Okay.
And it will be
Alternate
coming to
history.
Kickstarter in August.
Right. So that's another 2.5 months. We shall look forward to it.
Yeah. Also involved in this is Armagosa Press. Which is
Press.
Angus Abronson's latest company.
Yeah, he's the editor on the book.
Yeah.
Ah, okay.
I mean, Armagosa announced Dark Conspiracy 4th edition a few weeks ago.
Not familiar.
Okay.
But it sounds dark, and there might be a conspiracy.
And conspiratorial.
You should play our favourite game in all the world. I think you might enjoy it.
Oh, my favorite thing to do is to spring unexpected versions on Russ.
I knew there was a reason I liked you.
Hey, do you remember the Comic Relief D&D game? Sue Perkins, Nish Kumar, Sarah Pascoe, and Ed Gamble.
Brilliant.
Did any of you see it?
I saw it. I was
it good?
there watching it. Yeah, it was amazing. It was really authentic. It's not like one of these sort of semi-stage games. No, these people are playing proper D&D. And it's like, the learning curve was like, yeah, I'm a bit suspicious because they've gone from, do I roll this colour-coded dice or this one? To, okay, I got 15 plus the 7 to hit is 21. No, it's 22, sorry, and I've rolled a D8 for damage.
I think a couple of them. I think Sue Perkins said she'd played before, didn't she?
Yeah. I was like, but Ed Gamble was like waving a DMG around.
He seems like the sort of person that would have played before, I
don't know. But
the reason I mention it is just that it's now on YouTube. If you missed it live last Friday, then
it's really
you can
quite
go
funny to watch.
Yeah,
I very much enjoyed it.
That is exactly what I'm planning to do after we're done here. It's because I watched about 5 minutes of it and nodded off. Not because of anything with that. It was just I was exhausted.
But you say it's worth the watch then, Peter?
Oh, yeah, I very much enjoyed it. I mean,
jolly good.
We've actually talked about the work of Paul Foxcroft on this show before, back when was at the Edinburgh Festival and saw, Questing Time, where runs it for celebrities, and I watched it in a container in Edinburgh. That was quite good. Yeah, like those high cube containers that you take stuff around in? They converted one of those into a stage.
Oh, okay.
So I sat in one of those, watching it. It's like probably about, I guess it'd be 2 years ago. But yeah, no, it was quite good.
Nice.
Very much enjoyed it, and excellent DMing.
Hey, guess what we finished this week?
What have we finished this
Finally.
week? The Last Biscuits.
Oh,
Apart from the
I know this one. I know this one. Strontium Dog.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, this is where you've impelled yourself on being an editor rather than a writer and having publishing fun.
Yeah, I've currently been editing that and mythological figures at the same time, and I'm not an editor and I hate editing, but somehow that appears to be the thing that I'm doing all the time. But enough of that. No. It's done. Strontium Dog is done. It's a hardcover book.
Johnny Alpha.
Yep, hardcover book, full colour, 176 pages, I think. And it has been sent to Rebellion. We sent it yesterday for approval. Yes. And the moment they email us back and saying, yes, that's approved, assuming they email us back and say, yes, that's approved, because they might not.
I say, no, got it all wrong.
But historically, they tend to.
Who is this Morrissey? We've never heard of him.
Yeah. Ian Publishing, this isn't Modifius or Freely. Reject it.
The number of people I've seen online who now think, because Modifius now stocks our game on their store, which is lovely of them. But a lot of people now think Modifius produce it as well.
Of course. Yes.
I think it's not helped the fact that they actually did do that with one title, Vampire the Masquerade, where they actually took over the license and are doing it in-house.
Oh. Well, it is, like you said, it's really cool of them because that will increase exposure and sales, no doubt.
Well, there is a good chance if Rebellion come back with a yes today, they've looked through it and they approve it today, and they're usually pretty quick on these things. Depends on how busy they are, and it's the end of the week, so maybe not. But if they do so today, it may go on pre-order as soon before this podcast goes out. Maybe. Wow. Fingers crossed. Maybe. Nice. It might not. Nice. It might not. It's not a promise, but it is possible. In which case, people will be able to get the PDF straight away, and then we'll put the print run in, and that's already ordered. So depending on COVID stuff, we're cautiously sort of saying about August is a decent amount of padding for when those will actually go out.
Okay. And Strontium Dog is another Worlds of 2000 AD IP, right? Where it's post-apocalyptic
Space Bounty Hunters.
It's more than that. It's kind of
Space Bounty Hunters.
Yeah. Bounty Hunters through
time travel. Very, very,
in space.
Very cosmic Marvel DC kind of feel to it.
But Guardians of the Galaxy kind of thing.
Okay,
like 2080's take on it. So.
Right, so it's gonna be a little bit rougher and a little bit more cynical, right? Because 2000 AD has right?
Yeah, it's a little wacky. It's got you can travel through time, you can travel through space, so you might go back in time and try and kidnap Hitler or something.
Yeah.
Or
sounds like a laugh.
I don't know why I said Hitler, but he's the one you always think of, isn't it? But
also, I think they actually did that. They kidnapped Hitler and made him stand trial in the future in the comic.
Yeah.
Nice.
I just want to, and I don't know a lot about the IP. All I know is I want to make a character named Johnny Omega to be the arch nemesis to Johnny Alpha. Because I love that name, Johnny Alpha. I don't even know anything about Johnny Alpha, but that's such a great, snappy name.
Yeah. I was glancing through the equipment section the other day, and I looked at the time bomb. I love the time bomb.
Time bomb. So it's actually a bomb that deals with.
It creates a temporal vortex and just catapults anyone in the area either forward or backward in time.
Nice.
Fair enough. Oh, you sound like somebody else's problem.
Yes.
Sure.
Time bomb.
Time bomb.
If it's a cheesy play on words, I like it.
That's
also, the other thing I did this week, thump.
Watership Down?
No, I had to. I loved the title of this whenever I was writing it up for the News Digest. It's a great concept. It's a great concept too.
It's a one-page adventure.
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
And it's got this group of Durgar, or Dwergar, or Dergar, or however you pronounce that word.
Grey dwarves.
Dorgar, Dergar.
Delvers in the deep.
Dargar. I don't know. Durgar. And they've created a giant machine, and they're trying to awaken this horrible monster from underground.
Because of course they are.
Yes, why wouldn't they?
Well, it's dwarves. Yeah. Like, they make cool stuff and they delve too deep. Yeah. It's like their entire culture is based around
what they do.
Yeah. So they made this giant machine, and it's basically a big piston which goes thump, thump, thump into the ground. in order to try and wake this monster.
That's what my cat was doing to me at 4 a.m. this morning.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're literally trying to thump it awake, not through dark rituals or accidental, but literally thump, like wake up. I love it. All right,
it's like the old Victorian knocker. Thump, thump, thump. Time to wake up.
Yeah. I love it.
Well, this is based on an adventure by William Fisher, who wrote it for us for Trailseeker. It's the last adventure in Trailseeker because Trailseeker ended this week.
That was the Pathfinder one, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And it's a really fun little adventure. It's one of my favourite ones. Almost as much fun as the kobolds who are trying to build a flying contraption so they can be like dragons. I did like that one.
Yeah.
What else have we got in the news? Shall I have a look on here? I'm just looking at your column now, Darryl.
Well, there is an announcement of an announcement, this time from Larian Studios. The licensor for the Baldur's Gate game line has taken a cue from Wizards of the Coast.
Mm-hmm.
They announced that they're going to do an announcement about Baldur's Gate 3 at an upcoming video game event. It's
excellent.
That's important news because I don't want to miss the announcement.
Yep, it's the Guerrilla Collective virtual events coming up in early June. There's a bunch of different indie game studios, like the people who made Disco Elysium are going to be participating in it as well. But basically, everyone's holding their breath because Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be the big thing at this event, and everyone's wanting when's early access going to start.
And we think that's what the announcement is going to be.
Probably, and we're hoping it's going to be this summer, so that they'll be tuned up for a holiday release coming up at the end of the year.
I do like a good bit of news about an announcement. Yeah, always cheers me up.
I'm just going to say that since the start of quarantine, I've been doing a lot more online gaming. I have a small group of the four of us. We are now 60 hours into Divinity Original Sin 2 and they are in Act 4.
Nice.
So
I'm not even going to tell you how many hours I have in BattleTech.
I'm just saying it's the same engine, so it's like as soon as that thing, there's going to be like frantic scrapping at keyboards and people desperate to play that.
Now the early access is going to be limited. It's only going to be the first act. There's only going to be 5 of the can't remember what they call them, the origin characters, and then there's only 6 classes and 2 subclasses if you create your own character.
Oh yeah, I see you've got a list here. So we've got a human warlock, a half-elf cleric, a Githyanki fighter, a human wizard, and an elven vampire spawn rogue.
Yeah, unless they just stumble out the gate, which I don't foresee happening. This is going to be a monster CRPG. I mean, you got Larian, who is in my opinion putting out the best mainstream computer RPGs, doing an amazing job. Plus the Baldur's Gate IP, it's going to be a monster. And like I said, unless they just somehow stumble out the gate, which I don't see that happening.
Yeah. And also, this is just to throw it out there, the DOS2 engine comes with a Games Master mode as well.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, they built. I can't remember the Sven. It's Sven something. The head of Larian built Lost Mine of Phandelver in the original Sin 2 engine. Took it to Wizards of the Coast and showed it to them.
Taking me back to my Neverwinter Nights days. All this talk.
Yeah. And and I guarantee you, because they said yes, you can put that out to let people play. And I guarantee you that's what was the genesis of them working on Baldur's Gate 3.
The fan-made content is going to be berserk. Like, just so much of it. It's like people will say, fantastic, this is the opportunity I've always wanted to convert the entirety of like all these hardback things together. I, for one, am super stoked to see
people
it
will do it. I mean, I've heard Russ mention a lot the entire eras of his life that he's lost to Neverwinter Nights online. But it will be huge, and people want real game master tools. And let me explain what I mean by that. There was a game that came out a few years ago called Sword Coast Legends, and it was a D&D 5e adaptation, kind of an action RPG. It had Wizards of the Coast blessing. It had, official lore. It was tying into like the Out of the Abyss, all this stuff. And they said it would have a game master mode. And that got people really excited. Yeah. But then when they found out is the Game Master mode was you gave it a few options and it generated everything for you. Like you didn't get to play, you didn't get to build the dungeons and there was the backlash killed the game. And it was actually a pretty good game. But it put InSpace, the studio that made the game, out of business after 20 years. Wow. So people want those Game Master tools.
But it's fair. I mean, I'm not saying that Baldur's Gate 3 will have these tools. I'm saying that I know that the engine does have them in the DOS2 thing. And, like, whilst not that fussed about that because, you know, it doesn't really mean anything to people who aren't super invested in the lore, which I'm not, having the option to play it with people who are super invested in playing Dungeons & Dragons would be kind of big.
Yeah, hopefully they'll do that. I mean, most games that have legs, most video games that have legs have some sort of game creation component with it, modding, or at least make it easy to mod and that sort of thing.
All right, so we're super enthusiastic about that. Is there anything else in the news, Russ?
There is. Again, I'm looking at Darryl's column here, and we've got a bit of news about Alliance game distributors. Do you want to cover that, Darryl?
Oh, yeah. Alliance has resumed shipping, or will resume shipping, starting on next week. May 18th, they're opening up their warehouses. First shipments go out May 20th. I know, last week or the week before, we covered that, Diamond, which is the comic book sister company of Alliance game distributors, they had just reopened their stores, but their warehouses. But this is confirmation that Alliance is doing the same thing at the same time period. So local game stores who've had stuff on back order, who are still open and doing non-contact sales or able to open their areas, they can now open, or they're now going to be able to get stock in of games that they haven't been getting. Basically, distribution's opening back up again finally.
I do hope everyone's careful with the old social distancing and stuff, because that's still going to be pretty important.
My local stores they're legitimately following the CDC guidelines. People are like, when are you going to open? They're like, well, when the we're following the CDC guidelines. But I'll tell you, I follow the comic book industry about as close as I follow the RPG industry. And Diamond, for better or worse, you can argue whether what they did was good or not. That's not what I'm going to. I'm just saying, they one company shut the entire comic book industry down with one decision. So, and so it'll be interesting to see if anything changes out of that, coming on the other end of COVID. So,
hey,
fingers crossed.
PaizoCon Online 2020.
Oh, get in.
So, according to Darryl, again, I mean, do you want to cover it, Darryl? You wrote this.
PaizoCon Online 2020 is going to be taking place Tuesday, May 26th through Sunday, May 31st. They have now posted the event schedule. They posted the panels that they're going to be hosting on their Twitch channel, which they're going to be having, it's going to be all day long, pretty much every day of that, which like a week long full of stuff. They're going to have announcements for, Kingmaker is coming to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They're going to be, that's going to be the first big panel they have. What else was it? Starship Operations Manual. They're going to be going into that for Starfinder. An update on organized play. They do that every year at PaizoCon. And a look at the upcoming Advanced Players Guide. This is also where Paizo typically announces their release schedule for the rest of the year, going into the upcoming year. Like, they'll usually go all the way out until February or March the following year at PaizoCon, announcing what the new products are going to be. So that's something to look forward to. And there are over 1,150 virtual gaming events that you can sign up for.
Wow.
Like virtual tables that are, both organized play and, outside of the like Pathfinder Society, Starfinder Society, just like games that people have created for the virtual convention.
These online conventions seem to be more successful than I would have anticipated.
It's going to be interesting. UK Games Expo is doing one now, which is going to be in August. I wonder, the big question is what's Gen Con doing?
They keep pushing
they're
things.
Still in a holding pattern, aren't they?
They're holding on by their fingernails, hoping they can have it, but they're waiting on,
It's not
I'm sure there's...
I don't think.
Well, even if it happens, it's not going to be really Gen Con.
Even if it happens, no one will go to it. Well, maybe they will. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, a small percentage will.
A bunch of the big companies have already stated flat out are going to physical conventions for the year is over. Like Fantasy Flight, they're not going to any conventions. Green Ronin aren't going to any more conventions for the rest of the year. They've just completely rolled everything over to 2021.
The only ones that might be going ahead, maybe something like Dragon Meat, which is in December, but even that, I don't know. Right. Has anyone got any more news?
I think you've buried the lead in the biggest story of the week. Oh, that is that Ian World now has a toggle for dark mode.
Ooh. Wow.
If you're logged into your account, there's a little button that looks like a light bulb. If you click on it, it goes to dark mode.
Yes.
Wow.
Stealth mode. Yeah.
It would be cool if you could make the button so you could change your pact. Do you want to have a pact with a light entity or a dark entity?
Oh, nice.
And that would affect your thing. I did have, and this may not be newsworthy for the main podcast, but we talked a little bit about this.
We haven't covered it. So
we talked about this a little bit before the show started recording. And you guys had heard of this. I hadn't. No. I'll send Darryl the link for the show notes if it makes it into the main podcast. But there is and this is from Dicebreaker. Yeah, Dicebreaker.com is the article I found. And the headline is Indie Video Game Platform itch.io, has given tabletop RPG designers a new way to thrive. So I thought it was kind of an interesting follow-up to your discussion last week. Like, once I make my book, where do I put it, right? And here is another venue. Now, itch.io, for the past few years, I think since like 2012 or 2013, has cut off a little slice of the market for themselves for allowing indie video game designers or creators a place to sell their product. And the thing is, itch.io's point of distinction from, say, RPG Drive-Thru or DM's Guild is you set your rates. So if you go to DM's Guild, they're taking 50% no matter what. That's just how it is. And hey, that's fair. The terms going in. And you get that huge visibility platform that the DM's Guild can offer. I think, Russ, you probably know better than I do. Well, you definitely know better than I do. Drive-Thru RPG, is it 30%?
It depends on whether you're exclusive with them or not, 30 or 35.
Okay.
Right?
So with itch.io will recommend, but you set whatever you want, and they default to 10%. So they'll take 10%, you take whatever. Now they're branching out into people are starting to use it to sell tabletop RPG, not video game RPGs, but tabletop RPGs. Looks like some really indie stuff, which is fine. I mean, indie, there's a market for indie. But when I say indie, I mean indie. If you go look at
it's super indie. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sort of niche thing that I'm like, okay, I need something very, very, very specific.
Right.
With a very specific design aesthetic. Then itch.io would be
a lot of game jam style video games. If you're familiar with those, these are very independent. When we say independent, this isn't even like I was saying earlier, talking about all these independent companies. That's going to be like Digital Revolt, all these like A and single A and double A companies. These are one person bashing out something in Unity level small games.
So tiny.
It's interesting
that Russ looks like a publishing mogul.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Russ is modifious compared to some of the stuff being done here. But there's a long tail. I mean, it's kind of an older marketing term, but there's a long tail for a little bit adds up to a lot. So there's a little bit of indie that adds up to a fairly big space. And it's interesting that you mentioned game jams, Darryl, because they're doing game jams for these indie tabletop RPGs. So if people want to kind of get their feet wet with tabletop RPG design, they're doing sort of a game jam thing for tabletop RPGs. The other distinction for itch.io, if anybody wants to check it out, and they spend a lot of time covering this in this article, is they compare the dashboards of Drive-Thru RPG to itch.io. And evidently the behind-the-scenes dashboard experience is better. And that's an subjective
I would say
term.
Drive-Thru RPGs hasn't really changed in 15 years.
Well, and that's the point, but on the flip side, they say, but there's some drawbacks to itch.io because itch.io was not built from the ground up to support tabletop RPGs. So there's a little bit of, constraints there too. But I just thought it was a nice add-on to, and y'all's discussion last week was great. I love that stuff. When you talk about, what are the rates for paying? You've had 2 or 3 episodes where you go into the guts of how the RPG industry works, and I love that stuff. So I thought that was great.
Well, I pretend I know something about something.
Yeah. Well, you know more than I do. So, So anyway, if people are looking for another venue to publish their work and control the share that you receive, you might want to check out itch.io.
That's pretty interesting.
This is Chris Spivey from Darkity Studios, wishing you guys an excellent 100th episode, and I can't wait for the next 100 after that one. Cheers.
Hello. Lee Donovan here, long-time listener, first-time caller. Just wanted to say congratulations to Russ, Peter, poor, long-suffering Darryl, Shane, Hudson, and all the other contributors who have helped you reach your pod centenary. Thanks for all the news, info and entertainment, and introducing me to loads of new games, products and Kickstarters I would never have found otherwise. Here's to another 100 shows of hot-off-the-press RPG news, inventive Kickstarter guesses, great guests, sketches of wildly variable quality, Russ's interesting pronunciations, Peter's unintentionally hilarious filler noises, interruptions from Hudson, and sinking hand claps. Great work, team.
I'm Andrew Grunowski from Shoestone Publishing. Congratulations on your 100th episode.
It's time to play our favorite game. It's time to play the game. Our favorite game in all the world. Guess the Kickstarter from just the name.
Right, shall we play our favourite game in all the world?
I think we should.
All right then, one each. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah, that's good.
It's like a face-off. Okay then, who would like to go first?
I shall lead the way.
All right then, Peter.
I was going to volunteer Darryl.
Peter's going to lead.
Oh, yeah, we could volunteer Darryl, but that seems cruel.
I'm volunteering Darryl, but
okay.
You've already jumped on it today.
I have.
Mr. Coffey, what is wickedness?
Like, are we talking as an abstract concept, or
no? In the context of role-playing game news.
Well, if you're in the New England, Boston area, then wickedness is cool. Wicked. That's wicked cool.
Nobody knows what you're talking about.
I got the reference. So
thanks for sharing. That's helpful.
Thanks, Darryl.
Yeah, it's a wicked pissa.
Yeah, it's a wicked pissa.
Right. Anyway, Peter, what is wickedness?
Well, according to committee, it is apparently the latest, Bostonian game? It's the latest Bostonian game where you play as a witch living in the Boston area who wishes to deal with the fact that your sister has been crushed by a farmhouse flying out of nowhere, possibly from Kansas. We can't really say. And in your attempt to get to the Emerald City, you're going to experience a journey of life, love, getting to know other people, solving mathematical equations in the local university, and thus be able to achieve true greatness.
You left out the dog.
And your little dog too. Yeah, sure.
No.
No.
Really? But I was so sure.
What?
That's
How could wickedness indicate anything
Peter
else?
was wrong.
That's a good minus 1,000 points, I think.
How could it be anything other than
Let's see who can get the most negative.
the mix between Good Will Hunting and the Wicked Witch and the Wizard of Oz? How could it be anything other than that? I have no idea.
Would you like to know what it is?
Gobsmacked.
Mind blown.
Or should we just move on? We don't need to know what it is.
No,
Well, I will tell you what
the
it is.
creators. It might be cooler.
It is cool. It is a fantasy RPG about the resilience and power of the queer community. You form a coven between 3 mystical archetypes and try to keep your world of magic and mystery in balance with the mundane world in spite of its ignorance, poverty, and violence.
So the Wizard of Oz was pretty on point then.
Well, ish.
No? Okay, fair enough.
All right, so an exciting negative 1,000.
Okay, who would like to go next?
I only record my scores in the modulus, so it's absolutely fine.
I bravely volunteered Darryl.
All right then, Darryl.
All right.
You have been volunteered.
All right.
Okay, your one is this. What is Skull Diggers?
Let's see. That sounds like it would be a role-playing game that's focused on necromancy in some way, shape, or form. Probably the party is involved with the necromancy. I'm going to say OSR game. Either an adventure or a campaign setting where you're digging up bodies and doing things with them.
Trepanation.
So what it is, it's an original system. It's a tabletop horror RPG, and you have to defend your village from eldritch invaders while also protecting yourself from your village. It's a RPG built around the horror of dungeon diving as a profession.
So it's kind of Darkest Dungeons vibe.
But it has three core premises. One, you are not heroes. You are outcasts doing your best to survive in a cruel world, and your village does not love you.
I remember seeing this one now.
Two, you are not invaders or tomb robbers. No, the dungeons are invading your home instead. And three, you are not defined solely by how you fight, like you are in Dungeons and Dragons. You are a citizen, an explorer, or a warrior.
In Soviet Skulldiggers, dungeons invade you.
Yes, in Soviet village. So, is it powered by the apocalypse? Original system. Okay, said that. All right. Ooh, I'm just giddy to hear the score.
What did you say?
I said OSR campaign setting focused on necromancy.
Oh right. Well, it's not OSR.
There was a heavy.
It's not a campaign setting. It's not really focused on necromancy either. Despite the word skull in the title. So, unfortunately, you also have minus 1,000 points.
Yeah.
And an exciting -5 hit points down.
So that means Shane.
I hope that I can exceed their depths.
All you have to do is beat minus 1,000 points.
Well, I mean, but I'm looking to go the deepest. So I'm hoping that I can exceed their
You want to
points.
lose the worst.
Yes.
Or lose the best.
Yes,
as
sir.
the case may be.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, then.
I believe in you, Shane.
Okay, then.
You can do this.
Let me find the most difficult one, then. I think it's going to have to be... Okay. I may or may not pronounce this correctly.
Just give it your best shot.
I feel on the spot now. Ekphrastic Beasts. EKPHRASTIC.
Okay.
How's your Greek? Is it good?
So in a lovely home in Victorian England, I think it's Victorian England, there is a father who's too busy with his work. And a mother who's having trouble controlling the children. The children are beasts, and the servants are just at the end of their wits. And a witch arrives on an umbrella to help control the children and teach them life stories and get the entire family under control. And ekphrastic is a magical word that she sings to teach the children, and they go on amazing animated adventures and things like that. And ekphrastic is her special word that is quite precocious.
Yes, correct.
Yes! In your face, guys!
No, it's not. If it had been, no, that would have been amazing for you to have gotten that.
You're saying his answer wasn't supercalifragilisticexpialidociously correct.
Yeah. It was, it's ekphrastic.
So it is a full-colour fantasy art book. A compendium of creatures for D&D 5th edition. And rather than revisit known fantasy tropes, we begin with 4 established illustrators, each creating striking, startling, original artworks straight from the abyssal depths of the subconscious. Each is then given to our author to reverse engineer creature names, backstories, and stats for them. The result being an artist-created compendium of stunningly illustrated creatures.
Would you say the illustrations are vivid or dramatic?
Let me pull the illustrations up. I would say they are. I mean,
well, it's really weird because that was my first instinct to go with exactly that, and then at the last second, I changed over to my interpretation.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're weird, is what I would say.
Oh.
So what is ekphrastic? Is that like they came up with their own word?
I don't know.
What is ekphrastic?
No, is that an actual word?
It's
ekphrastic.
Yeah,
I
didn't know it, but I had a quick Google. It comes from the Greek for the description of a work of art produced as a rhetorical exercise. Often,
there you go.
A vivid, often dramatic verbal description of a visual work of art, either real or imagined.
I bet you that famed Greek philosopher Socrates came up with that.
Socrates.
Seems likely. Yeah.
Socrates and his friend Diogenes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Bill and Ted. I'm all about.
While he was chained to the wall by that art villain Plato.
It's times like these I'm reminded of the famous words of Socrates when he said, "I drink what?"
What?
So Shane, I was going to give you minus 1,001 points.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which a big grin comes across his face. But because you slipped in that bit of information at the end that you were originally going to guess that, I've decided to take you at your word. And I've decided to give you back 2 of those points. So you actually have minus 999. Making you the clear winner this week.
Con!
You only have yourself to blame.
Always shut up while you're ahead. Stats.
Or while you're behind, the case may be.
Well, what it was, you just gave me extra points for my fabulous collar. My Ming the Merciless collar.
That's true.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Greetings, Russ, a.k.a. Morrus, or Morrus, a.k.a. Russ, and Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Roleplayers. I wanted to take a moment and congratulate you on your 100th episode of the podcast that aims to amuse and enthuse. See, I have a 40-minute drive to work, and your podcast makes the drive so much more entertaining with the banter, the news, and the interviews. Keep up the good work, and here's to 100 more episodes. Cheers.
Congratulations to Morrus, Peter, and Darryl for reaching 100 podcasts. Plus the session 0, which I still haven't had time to listen to yet. I've been an avid listener since episode 13, back in the pre-theme tune days. I enjoy my weekly dose of RPG news, as it has opened up a whole world of different RPGs other than my beloved D&D. Some other podcasts are ever so serious, but Morrus and Peter have just the right level of merry banter to keep things interesting. The podcast has matured into the mighty oak it is now, attracting some really top-notch guests. I'm still enjoying the sketches each week. Okay, some are a little bit iffy, but definitely something to look forward to. Malach is sadly less frequent than I'd like, but I enjoy his appearances at the start and end of the show. Special thanks to Darryl for the really excellent sound work. Anyone who isn't a patron already should get over there now and listen to the extra content, which is a real treat. So, thanks very much, and more Malach the Maleficent for a better tomorrow.
Okay, guys, you stumbled across a nest of dire kobolds. They think you're eyeing their tribal totem. Time for initiative. No, sorry. No dice needed. I have come up with a revolutionary new way to handle initiative.
Oh no.
What he said.
This better not be like the time you determine initiative based on the mathematical computation of our circadian rhythms factored against the Julian date.
No. Nothing so eccentric. I do love to think of game mechanics, but I do want to keep it reasonable.
Since when?
Here, just look at these.
Are those...
buzzers! Yes, it's time for... quiz, show, initiative! Here, everyone, take a buzzer.
Can't we just do the circadian rhythm thing again?
You kidder. Okay, I see everyone has a buzzer. Let's get started. At the end of the game, initiative ranking will be based on your quiz show score.
Unbelievable.
I know, right? Too much fun. Okay, first question. There's an easy one, contestants. Who co-created Dungeons and Dragons? That was close, but I think contestant number 2 made it by a whisker. Well, contestant number 2?
We don't know who's who. Shouldn't we go by our character names?
Oh, yeah, good point. Contestant Flabgar.
Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax.
That's right! First point on the board. Okay, the questions will increase in difficulty as we go on. Next question. What year was D&D first published? Contestant Shadow, the Mysterious Ranger.
1974.
You are correct! It seems Flabgar has competition. Next question. What were the classes available in original D&D, now often referred to as OD&D? Contestant Dreadfist.
Fighter, magic user, cleric.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. No points scored, and you've also entered combat 5 hit points down.
Wait, what? Wait, you didn't mention that when we started?
Quiz shows are full of unexpected and exciting fun. Anyone else want to try? What were the classes available in original D&D, now often referred to as OD&D? Contestant Flabgar.
Fighting Man, magic user and cleric.
Correct! The fighting man, not fighter. That distinction throws a lot of people off. Right, contestant Dreyfus? The scoreboard so far. Contestant Flabgar has 2 points. Contestant Shadow, the Mysterious Ranger, has 1 point. And contestant Dreadface will face the Dark Ovals, an exciting 5 hit points down. They're really giving him the eye. Okay, next question, contestants. What classes can an elf be in the basic edition of D&D, first released in 1979? Contestant Shadow, the Mysterious Ranger.
Yeah, it's a trick question. Demi-humans, including elves, are classes, not races, in basic D&D.
Congratulations, contestant Shadow, the Mysterious Ranger. You successfully answered the trick question of the day. That's 2 more points. Plus, you enter combat with an extra 5 hit points. Okay, contestants, it's the final question in this round of Quiz Show Initiative. Which 1963 movie starring Vincent Price and Boris Karloff inspired the magic missile spell? Contestant Dreadfist.
Raven. What? That's right!
I'm sorry, contestant Dreadfist. That's another 5 hit points off your maximum going into battle for an exciting total of 10 hit points down.
Cannot believe this.
Contestant Shadow, the Mysterious Ranger.
The Raven.
Yes, that's correct. Contestant Dreadfist was so close, but didn't provide the full title. Look, I believe he's struggling to express how much he appreciates the fairness of these rules.
What a good sport. You know, it's really rare to see him that energized.
Okay, contestants, that's it for this round of Quiz Show Initiative. Our final scores are contestant Shadow, the Mysterious Ranger, with 4 points, plus an extra 5 hit points. Contestant Flabgar with 2 points, and contestant Dreadfist with a super exciting not 1, not 2, but 10 hit points down. Okay, that's also our initiative order. Let's start combat.
So how are we going to handle this? A magic 8-ball?
No, just dice. What do you think, I'm some kind of weirdo or something?
Hi, Russ and Peter. It's Richard from the D20 Future Show. Congratulations on reaching 100 episodes. And thank you so much, Russ, for being available to be interviewed so many times and being such a wonderful guest whenever you have been. Thanks for all the information, for all the news, for all the fun. And thanks for all of the titles of Kickstarters that turn out to be supplements for 5th edition and not original systems of their own. It's been amazing. What an achievement. Congratulations, guys. Just one piece of feedback, though. Dial it down on the news. You do quite a lot of news. Not everyone just wants to hear about RPG news. All right, thanks.
Hi, I'm Matt Corley from Saturday Morning Scenarios.
I'm Mike Myler from EN Publishing, Legendary Games, Storm Bunny Studios, and Rogue Genius Games.
Hello, my name is Sean, a.k.a. Mallow, a.k.a. Sean from Identico. And you're listening to Morris's unofficial Table Talk RPG Talk.
Okay, so we each have a topic. Who would like to start?
I'll I don't mind starting since I've been volunteering.
Get that ball
Well, and I
Mr.
think
Stacks,
it
you may
also
start.
it ties in nicely to the 100th episode. So what I did, thinking about the 100th episode, I was like, you know what D100 systems are there out there? You know, and so I played a few here and there.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to see, find ones that maybe were well known and not so well known. But I'll tell you what I ran into that I was not expecting.
Oh.
And I will list some of the D100 games that are out there. And I'll also mention my favorite fumble result in all the world ever that came off of a D100 random table. But I was surprised to find a very vigorous debate among people that don't like D100 and people that do. I was not expecting that. I knew it would be out there because gamers like to debate stuff, right?
Yeah.
But there's a pretty hefty portion of the RPG community, I would say, that dislikes D100 systems. And I was not expecting to find that.
I find that I struggle with that as a concept, that you could just dislike a dice.
Yeah.
Well, people dislike D20 and are very vocal about it, so I guess they would also.
It had. I don't. The summary of the arguments was that the people that argue for D100 say basically it's as precise as you can get. Right, 1 to 100, you can get as granular as you want.
So what I like about D100 is that it feels different. So in the games I've played at D100, I played FASA Star Trek back in the 80s.
Right. That's on the list.
Ding,
Ding, ding, ding, ding.
Just suits that game. It just feels right because it's a game that's sort of broadly around exploration and science and space and science fiction and stuff like that. A percentile system fits the theme well, and it just helps. I think it just has that extra little bit that helps tip you over into the immersiveness of the game.
Well, the main argument for it, and I do agree that different settings and flavors of games, that the mechanical system can suit it better. And with most people that argue for a D100 system, it's just very precise. If you're like, you have a 17% chance of success, that's hard to replicate on a D20.
That's
right?
true.
Because for every face on a D20, that's a 5% chance.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So games that want to be more precise and more granular and okay, it's a 17% chance. That's just real easy to do on a D100.
Yeah.
They also, it also fits. You can have bigger random tables and all of that stuff. So for me, it that works. It's just real easy to understand. But and we're doing roughly 10 minutes each, so I don't have time to go into that. That could be a whole show, really, people debating the merits of a system. But yeah, there's a surprising amount of people out there that just dislike not deep percentile dice in general, but an entire system built around percentile dice, which I wasn't expecting to find that.
My only issue I've ever had with them is most of the D100 systems tend to be roll under systems. Like the target number is 65%, so you have to roll a 65 or lower, and it's just anathema to me to go roll and go, yes, I got a 1. That feels wrong to me.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, it should be fairly easy to flip that and rig the system so it's a rollover, but I don't know. I mean, I haven't gone through the exercise. So here are some, of course, the big granddaddy or grand entity, if you will, of percentile systems. Maybe there were some before this, but the big one that got published and that everybody knows is RuneQuest. And that had not only were all of your statistics, and I'm just roughly strength decks, whatever they were using on a 1-to-1, a 0-to-1, or 1-to-100 or whatever. But it also was one of the first games to introduce a skill-based system. And that was also based on, and that was a long time ago when RuneQuest came out. For a while, RuneQuest was I think the second best-selling RPG behind D&D in when it came out, which was late 70s. Early 80s. And of course, it's really well known. And I think RuneQuest is about to have a new edition, if I remember correctly, or just did. And out of RuneQuest, Chaosium, who published RuneQuest, developed BRP, which is the basic role-playing system. And that was derived from RuneQuest, and it became their sort of generic system, like GURPS or whatever. You could put any system you want on top of it. And out of that came, of course, Call of Cthulhu, which is a D100 based system. So those are two of the bigger, I would say, D100 based systems that people are probably familiar with. Okay, so also one of the bigger early D100 systems was Rollmaster. And out of that came, they did sort of a scaled down version of that, which became Middle Earth Role Playing, or MERP, which is one of my favorite role playing games. I love MERP
too.
Yeah. I love MERP a lot. And speaking of MERP, that leads into my favorite fumble of all time, which came out of MERP, and it's on the fumble and failures table. If you roll a 97 through 99, you get the best fumble result that's ever been written in the history of books.
Tell us, Shane, what is that?
And it is, and I quote, stumble over an unseen imaginary deceased turtle. I'll say that again. Stumble over an unseen imaginary deceased turtle. You are very confused. Stunned 3 rounds. So, there you go. 91 and 96 would be unbelievable mishandling of your weapon. 90 would be bad taste and poor execution. You attempt to maim yourself as your weapon breaks. So, Rollmaster and MERP are kind of famous for their critical tables because they just have a lot of fun to them. So, some D100 games that are people are playing now that a lot of people might not know about, and I think these are all BRP based, that basic role playing. There's one called Mithras that seems pretty popular. And there's also there's a range of supplements called the Mythic Earth, and I'm not sure if that's a separate game or if that's just supplements for Mithras. And then Legend, there's a game out there called Legend that seems to be kind of popular based on the BR. So if people want to play something that's a little bit less well known, using the BRP, which is the basic role playing system from Chasm. Okay, real quick, here's some other games that got mentioned. I haven't had a chance to go verify all this, so grain of salt. If you guys get people writing and say, no, that was then, grain of salt. The 3rd edition of Gamma World was evidently D100. Star Frontiers was D100. I totally forgot that. I even have Star Frontiers sitting over here, and that was one of my first games back in the day. Boot Hill. That's, arguably, other than Deadlands, the most famous cowboy shoot-'em-up RPG, right? Gangbusters, another favorite of mine. I think, Russ, this is one of your favorites, but I could be wrong. Top Secret?
I've never played that.
Top Secret? Who was... Somebody else. I was thinking you were the Top Secret person. Huh? Not you? All right, well, so Top Secret was the espionage game that was basically James Bond without the James Bond license, right? So, Top Secret, and that was from TSR. Marvel Superheroes with the Phase Rip system. That's a D100. That's also a very straightforward, easy-to-use system if you're wanting to introduce kids. Adventures of Indiana Jones role-playing game. Star Trek, the role-playing game, which Russ brought up. Space Master, I guess that was the science fiction version of Rollmaster that I'm not familiar with. There's a game called Harp. Is anybody familiar with that? I'm not familiar with Harp. HARP. Okay. Twilight Imperium, the role-playing game. Ringworld. Ringworld was evidently a D100. Not every version, but several versions of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay used at least full-on D100 or elements of D100.
Dark Heresy, Deathwatch, Rogue Trader, Black Crusade, Only War.
And then finally, a game that is obviously of inferior quality compared to a new version or a new game using the IP. Games Workshop's Judge Dredd, the role-playing game, was evidently D1.
It's not right there.
It's not in your title.
It's not right there between Indiana Jones and BattleTech.
So
that's a different role-playing game.
So anyway, I know we were trying to limit this to 10 minutes, and we could go deeper on that, but I'll put a bow on it. And I'll just say again, my favorite crit ever written by man, and I don't believe it'll ever be exceeded, is stumble over an unseen imaginary deceased turtle. You are very confused. Is stunned 3 rounds.
That happens to me all the time.
That's me done. Yeah, why is it's crazy. So that's me done.
All right, let's go with you next, Peter. What was your topic?
What was my topic? Oh, yes, I wanted to talk how awesome role-playing games are and how much people look forward to them. How they add, like, a little extra bit of structure to your day. How it just gives you something to look forward to, because it's like, you know, you get to a day and you're thinking, every day feels like it's the same, like it's stretching out in one long, interminable, unbroken stretch of monotony. And you're like, but wait, it is almost time for role-playing. And it gives you something to get up for, something to say, yeah, you know what, I've got this coming for you. So yeah, having a bit of routine, having something where you actually get to interact with people, talk to people and say, hey, that was awesome, where you can escape from the humdrum and everyday mundane, try out things that you would never try in person, but do things like, you know, just because that's what your character would do, and be someone else. I think that is a really powerful exercise in agency and being someone else.
And especially now when we're in lockdown and there's a lot of other things we can't do. Whereas role-playing is something that is super suited to, you know, Zoom meetings and Skype meetings and all the different tools and things that you could use.
You can get out. You get that touch with other people who do not live in your house, and that's pretty good.
It also helps with the poll. Okay, what day of the week is it? Okay, it's 2 days to D&D night, so that means it's
that's pretty much what it's like for me at the moment.
You got kind of a touchstone that you can actually do backwards from.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting when Peter was thinking that he might bring up like mental health or whatever related to gaming. One thing I've noticed that's become blazingly apparent to me is the reasons that now there's always been exceptions. Okay, I'm generalizing, but sometimes you have to generalize to make a point. The reasons people play role-playing games now have much more variety than why people used to play role-playing games. For the most part, it was just escapism. It was, power fantasy. Let's go dungeon crawl and kill some, Russ monsters or whatever. And, it was just level up. Let's see, can we beat the dungeon? Yeah. And then, you introduce wilderness, but it still mainly was a escapist. And depending on your age, like when I was 12, 13, I was playing RPGs as a power fantasy. How powerful can I get my guy? And I was min-maxing and all that. But now there's so many people that play RPGs they're trying to learn about other people. They're trying to broaden their mind. Y'all have had several guests on that one of the main goals was to like put people in the shoes of somebody they know, to learn more about things. Mental health. I mean, there's literally people playing RPGs for therapy. People are looking to get different things out of RPGs these days. That it's just interesting to watch the hobby change over time as new generations, because every time a new generation comes along, they iterate on what's been in the past. And so it's, I will probably almost always, except if it's a one shot, because I'm system promiscuous. I learned to love new systems. I like to do one shots and run one shots. But for my weekly gaming, I'm just straight up, it's just escapism fantasy, but it's interesting to watch what newer generations of gamers are making out of the hobby.
Okay. That leaves me and Darryl. Who shall go first?
I think you should.
I volunteer Darryl.
I was going to say, there's actually a little bit of a segue there going to learning new systems, because that's what you wanted to talk about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, as you can see from the shelf behind me, I have a small number of tabletop role-playing games collected throughout the years. I also have a dog under my feet. Come over here.
Yeah, the dog's not related to your other Jeez.
So now you're awake. Okay. And I think, Peter, you've mentioned a few times that sometimes it's hard to get people at your club to play something other than D&D.
They're only pretty enthusiastic, but sometimes get people who wander in and I'll say, I want to play D&D. I'm like, do you mean role-playing games? Or do you mean D&D's of the 5th edition specifically? Because it does seem to be an important difference.
D&D is obviously the big game at the moment and has been for most of the last 40 years. There's been a couple of times when it wasn't the top dog, but pretty much for the last 40 years, D&D's been the major game. And with that comes this sort of I think Ryan Dancy used to call it network externalities or something like that. But basically, the more people who play your game, unlike other products, like for a social game, the more people that play the game, the better the game gets and more attractive the game becomes. Because one of its qualities is being able to find and play with other human beings.
That's true.
So a game's popular, unlike, I don't know, say food or just like art or something like that, which you can enjoy on your own, and its quality isn't defined by its popularity. For role-playing games, its popularity is one of the qualities that makes it good. Because the more popular it is, the bigger the player base, and the more diverse the player base, and the more gaming you can do. Quite frankly, you don't need a certain chocolate bar to be popular for you to go and eat one.
Right, because it's going to be the chocolate bar no matter what.
So D&D is obviously by far the most popular game, and it's a really, really good game. It's I don't know if it's the best iteration of D&D, but it's definitely the most suited for sort of onboarding. Onboarding, that's the word, isn't it? That corporate word, yeah. Onboarding, onboarding,
bringing new people in,
on-ramping,
onboarding new players.
Don't say railroading, or boy, you'll get some reviews.
Railroading.
It's very well designed for that, and it's very well pitched at the right level of crunch to make it easy to stream, which has also helped make it really, really popular. So where I'm going with this is...
Are you going somewhere with this? Really?
But
I'm enjoying it. Overjoyed.
There are lots and lots and lots of other games, and they are largely brilliant. I mean, some of them aren't, but most of them... I mean, the ones I've written are amazing, but
let's cut to the point. Play more of Russ's games, people.
Yeah, why aren't you playing Joe Shredden World's 2000 AD right now?
Well, I mean, if you look at that shelf behind me, I've got DC Heroes there, I've got Star Trek there, I've got old D&D, obviously. I've got Warhammer, I've got all sorts of stuff up there.
Doctor Who, DC Heroes.
And different role-playing games give you different experiences. And I know a lot of people will say you can pretty much mimic any genre of D&D. And yeah, you can, approximately. But a game designed specifically for a genre will give you a different experience than adapting D&D for that genre. Because the mechanics of D&D, are built around a certain feel and style of play. And the mechanics of other games reward and incentivize and, create different... like a game of Jenga feels different to a game of chess. So you can't...
but they're both games, right?
The mechanics of a game, the rules of a game, and the way the game's set up creates a different feeling of game.
Which all you have to do is really look at different games that have had the same license. Western Games Star Wars versus the D20 Star Wars versus the Fantasy Flight Star Wars. Each one has its own feel, its own... It brought certain things to the forefront of the game through its mechanics.
Yeah. So D&D is very high fantasy, heroic gaming. You can get much more gritty games, you can get darker games, you can get lighter games, you can get games with more crunch, you can get games with a lot less crunch. And one of the main reasons I tend to see that people don't play other games is that they say they haven't got the time or the inclination to learn another rule set. And I think that kind of is a shame slightly, because learning another rule set, I mean, in some cases, it can require time and energy and effort. A lot of cases, especially for rules-like games, it doesn't really, especially if you've got a GM who's, the complaint is often from a GM, I've got this game, I want to run it, I can't find any players. That's the usual scenario you have. So the GM knows how to play it, so it's not like everybody has to learn it together. You've got someone there who's willing to basically guide you into the game and try and help make it as easy as possible, and they know how to play it. So when you've got that situation, right, I just want to say I would encourage people to just take the opportunity and try a different game. Even if you don't like the different game, that's fine. But just give it a go, because what have you got to lose? I've been at conventions, I've introduced people to games, and it's been a 1 hour slot. And in that time, we've introduced each other, I've introduced the basic mechanics to someone, and we've played a short adventure. And these were people who had no idea how to play that game before they sat down at that convention table on the convention floor.
Yeah.
So if you've got a GM there that's that's already done the heavy work of buying the game, getting into it, getting enthusiastic about it and reading it, and learning the rules, that's most of the effort's been made for you. All you got to do is sit down there and just take that GM's cue and just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that I see it. I mean, I'm biased. I'm already biased in your direction, Russ, because I'm one of those gamers that I used to buy games knowing I'd probably never get to play it, but I wanted to see how the system
I've
was.
got so many games I've bought, I've read, then just put back on the shelf with a wistful sigh, knowing I'll never get a chance to play them.
Yeah, you never get to run it. Yeah, so, and then I thought Darryl's example of Star Wars was an excellent example here, because it's a well-known IP. Most people already know Star Wars when they sit down, but how's it going to feel when you play it? And it's had several different systems that are wildly different from each other. So, like me personally, if I play Star Wars, I want to play either the original West End games or I want to play the D20 based one. I never played the Decipher. I'm playing the new Star Wars, but only because my friends are playing it.
I think D20 suits Star Wars because Star Wars is very much like fantasy in space, isn't it?
Yeah.
It also depends on the story you wanted to tell, because D20 system's really good at zero to hero type play where you're getting, but if you're wanting to play more of like the X-Wing Squadron style game or something where you're not really you're already heroes, you're already champions of the rebellion in that, then something like Western games or Fantasy Flight's going to work, or smugglers type games.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Fantasy Flight, in my opinion, has very rich space combat rules. But its ground combat does not feel like Star Trek, and I mean Star Wars. And I'll say a squad of stormtroopers in the Fantasy Flight games is deadly, and that is not Star Wars. So it's just very crunchy.
I think you're supposed to believe it is Star Wars off the edge of the screen. Because people talk about stormtroopers like they're scary. It's just that when stormtroopers come up against the heroes of the story, they suddenly lose that ability.
I would just say, because I know we're trying to keep this short for each segment, my statement on this would be this. If you want to be just a D&D player, and here in the South, Darryl is South of America, Darryl, so when people walk in and say, you want a Coke? You say, yeah. Well, what kind of Coke do you want? Coke is... Yeah, Coke is generic. So D&D for a lot of people is generic for...
What are you doing this weekend? Playing D&D? What game? Shadowrun.
Yeah, Shadowrun. So what I would... If people are playing D&D and that's all they want to do, they don't consider themselves RPG gamers. They just consider themselves, I play D&D, fine. But if you consider yourself in the hobby, I would encourage playing different games, because it's like playing different character types in D&D. When you break out of your comfort zone, you become a better player.
It's not even about being better or worse. It's just about it will be fun and you'll enjoy it, is what I'm trying to say. Or hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, you get more experience, you get more exposure to the hobby. And as much as I love D&D, I think 5e is a great system. I love running. Anytime there's like a game day or conventions, I always run one-shots of other systems. One, so I get to play them, and two, to expose other people. And people almost always have a good time.
Alien game from Free League is just amazing. And I just wish people would play it and try out that stress mechanic and realise how cool it is and how it plays into how the game runs and how you feel playing that game sitting at the table.
You can also borrow mechanics. Like, if you go back to playing D&D forever,
you
borrow
totally
the stress mechanic.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we did an episode once on mechanics you can steal from other games, didn't we?
Yeah, that was quite good.
No, I would definitely add that stress mechanic if I didn't mention it at the time. I can't remember when we did the episode.
No, that was way before. That was way before the Alien RPG was out.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, another thing is, in my experience, if you have a good GM, learning a new system takes about as much mental energy as playing a new video game. I mean, you've got to learn the UI, and but it
depends on the system.
It's not as hard as people think.
How well written the system is and how elegant it is. Some systems you will honestly pick up in 5 minutes.
Right.
On most systems, all you really need to do to sit down and start playing is know what the core mechanic is, especially if there's some pre-generated characters for you. Because the character generation, I think, is one of the heaviest loads that a new player is going to have. Yeah. So don't start them off with character generation. Start them off with pre-generated characters and give them the core rule. And the core rule of 90% of systems is very simple. It's usually roll a dice and add something else and beat a target, or roll a number of dice and get that many 6s or something. But you'll be able to pick that up really quickly.
Yeah, going back to the character creation, one thing that I always do when I'm introducing people to a new system is, instead of doing character generation or even walking them through it, I'll just say, what kind of character do you want to play? And then ask them questions about it. Then I go make their character and bring it back. And with the caveat, okay, this is what I made based on what you said. As soon as you start getting a feel for the system, we can start swapping numbers around and bump this skill, lower this skill, get rid of this attribute, whatever.
Well, you're also asking people, if you have them create a character, you're asking them to invest, without really knowing if they like this system or not. So pre-gens are very, I always do pre-gens.
Plus the game I'm usually trying to introduce people to is Shadowrun, which has notoriously long character creation process.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those glorious sessions of Shadowrun character generation.
Anyway, we are down to the last 13 minutes before Peter has to leave. So let's
still have Darryl.
Switch over to Darryl, who I believe you wanted to talk about the D&D movie.
This whole thing started because I said on Twitter, it's like, I'm editing the episode and I'm just like, I wish I was on the show, because the D&D movie is kind of weird to try to describe to people what's going on with it, because there are 3 different film studios have been involved with 3 different directors attached, 4 different screenwriters that I'm aware of, and several different executive producers over the past, and this is just the recent movie that they've been kicking around in pre-production since about 2013. And it's all because of various rights issues and everything, but there's basically 2 D&D movies that have been pushed forward so far. One is the one that everyone keeps talking about, the D&D movie. That is Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast making a deal with, originally it was Paramount, and then it was, I believe it's now currently with Sony, was the last thing. I don't know, that was what we covered last week. But anyway, it is so complicated trying to follow this thing. But that is the main D&D movie. That's the one that's currently being directed by the guys who wrote Spider-Man Homecoming.
Homecoming.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a Marvel...
The Marvel executive producer has what's called a first look deal, which is usually done the other way around, where the producer gets first look. There's been 2 movies that have been in development, and a lot of people have been confusing the 2 because they're thinking there's just the D&D movie. The other one is the one that Joe Manganiello...
There's 2 movies.
Well, Joe Manganiello's been trying to get a Dragonlance movie made.
Which is the one I want. That's the one I want.
Oh, yeah.
He has a script made that he's written with a screenwriter and has gotten Margaret Weiss's blessing on. And that's the one that he has been pushing to get made. And that's because
he's posted pictures of the script, hasn't he? And
yes.
Yeah, he's teased that there's a Dragons of Autumn Twilight script.
This goes back all the way back to this movie. The rights issues on it is really weird. Do you remember the Saga? I talked about this in my Dragonlance video that I did, but do you remember the Saga system that they had for Dragonlance, where they made the 5th Age? That was done to separate the Dragonlance film rights from Dungeons & Dragons, because when they signed it over to the original producer, it was for all Dungeons & Dragons properties.
Sure.
And then they realized, oh crap, Dragonlance is still on the New York Times bestseller list. We can't have that. 5th Age. This is no longer a D&D game, so it's not part of the film license anymore. So now those are 2 separate things. So that's why Joe Manganiello is trying to do his Dragonlance thing, which is completely separate from the Warner Brothers thing. Which is completely separate from the Paramount thing, which is completely separate from Courtney Solomon, the director and producer of this, was trying to make his own movie with Warner Brothers.
Well, here's my main question. I just want to know, is the one that has the Marvel people attached, will Snails be in it? Because if Snails isn't in the movie, then by goodness, okay. Well,
currently what's been leaked about the script on that one is it comes across very, very more in the style of the D&D cartoon than the original D&D movie. It looks very... This is the sort of game that you played when you were 13 years old in your friend's bedroom for the first time and you're playing D&D. Like, characters like awesome, make badass kind of characters, names.
Right.
Very on the nose.
At one time...
I think one of the problems with the idea of a D&D movie is that D&D isn't a story. It's a toolbox for making stories. So Dragonlance is a story. So Dragonlance, a D&D campaign setting and adventure path, is a story. So you can make a Dragonlance story because there's a plot and there's characters. But D&D isn't a story in itself. So basically, all you end up doing is making a generic fantasy movie and slapping D&D on it and sticking a beholder in there.
Or you do silly stuff like one of the D&D movies, I think it was the second one, you know, he goes into the magic shop and they're like, are you Paragon mode? Or, you know, and they do these dumb in-jokes that the general audiences aren't going to get.
They've got to like lean into their strongest or most iconic IP. So either they go with Dragonlance or make a Drizzt movie, because that's one of their strongest IPs. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's necessarily a movie I personally would want to watch, but you know, they've got to lean into their actual characters and settings and stories, rather than just a generic fantasy movie with D&D just slapped on.
Either on that, or go with.
I think that's a good point.
D&D is more a brand for kind of like the same way that they had our anthology series back in the 90s and all the way back to the 60s. Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, Tales from the Crypt, kind of thing, where each independent stories that are all under this one brand of Dungeons and Dragons. Here is a bunch of different fantasy stories.
I think that would be.
Yeah, I still just want Dragonlance done like Game of Thrones. Make it a TV series.
Yeah, as much as if I have to choose a D&D movie, I'd rather have Dragonlance, but I'd rather have it as an ongoing series because the material supports it. I mean, you could have seasons. You could have at least 3 seasons.
Game of Thrones shaped hole, isn't there?
I think the problem with Dragonlance, though, I think the special effects needed for Dragonlance is a bit more than Game of Thrones. In Game of Thrones, dragons appear occasionally. Whereas in Dragonlance, you've got like flashy magic and dragons and draconians and monsters and goblins and, you know, D&D monsters and stuff all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a Dragonlance nerd. I just reread Autumn Twilight not that long ago. So another point that Russ brought up, which I think is interesting, that I want to expand on. There are a lot of people arguing these days that D&D isn't even Tolkienish epic high fantasy anymore, right? So, but yet, if they make a movie, it's going to be set in that. So, that being said, I do think they should go with like Forgotten Realms or something like that if they do a D&D movie. That's not
I mean, they couldn't really do an Eberron one because I just don't think people would associate those visuals with D&D.
They would have to be an Eberron movie first and foremost, and then happens to be Dungeons and Dragons as well. Kind of like what they did with the Dragonlance animated movie.
Yeah, they just called it Dragonlance. Yeah, a lot of people probably didn't even know it was D&D or had come out of D&D.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, thank you for joining me today on this 100th episode. A special day.
Congratulations on 100 episodes.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for being a supporter of the show for so long. Thank you for covering for Peter so many times. And thank you for just being a friend.
Yes.
Isn't that a song?
Likewise.
Thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for being a friend.
It's the Golden Girls theme song.
Oh my God, why do I know that?
Because the Golden Girls are awesome.
It's a great
sitcom. You love it.
And Darryl, thank you.
We haven't had the chance to read out all the nice things our listeners have said about us. Because people have written in, especially to be on the 100th episode.
We got a message from Mark Rosenthal. Rhymes with ball or fool, he says. He says, Dear Russ and Peter... And Darryl. I'll add Darryl. I've been a listener since show number 0 and haven't regretted a minute of it. With a mix of humour and insight, you guys provide a unique take on the week's RPG news. Thanks to you and your special guests, I found products to peruse and services to support that make my game table more inclusive, more effective, and more fun. Here's to the next 100 episodes.
Woohoo.
Thank you.
Very nice.
We appreciate that. That's very kind of you to say.
That's nice.
So, Andrew McLaren. Hi, Russ and Peter. Last Sunday you invited listeners to email, but as usual didn't leave a clear path for that. So here we are on your Patreon.
Hey. We like to make our listeners work to show their appreciation.
The age banding for gamers was amusing. I am in the second generation of gamers, the oldest in my group by some years, and the youngest player in my group is well over 45. You two do a great show, but thank goodness for Darryl. And you are very English. The ghosts of Tim Brooke Taylor and Terry Jones seem to haunt the airwaves, and if I think that, you must be near impenetrable to East Europeans and most Americans. Final quick shout out to Darren Morrissey, who does a great spot as Malach. Jordan Taylor, I wanted to congratulate you on this achievement. Thank you for the entertainment. Bless you for reigniting my enjoyment of RPGs, and curse you for introducing me to so many interesting new books. Thank you and congratulations.
Yes. Thanks for the invite. I'm very flattered and honored that you included me.
Well, thank you so much both for coming on.
Yes.
Come down, Pat.
And Darryl, you do an amazing job. You honestly, we're just a couple of mumbling idiots, and you actually make us sound like a couple of mumbling idiots, but not quite as
well edited mumbling idiots.
Super well edited. Super well edited. Like
you sound like a couple of edited mumbling idiots.
Articulation.
Listen, I edit my own stuff, but nowhere near all the people don't understand the level of professionalism and effort that Darryl brings to it. He really works hard on the editing.
Oh, yeah, I understand, because I'm here when the sausages are being made. I'm like, oh, this is a much nicer product I'm hearing in my ears. I remember that. That did not go smoothly, has all that.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for joining us for these last 101 episodes, technically, including episode 0.
May the dice be ever in your favor.
Hopefully, you'll stick with us for another 100 episodes.
Absolutely.
Puppet flail.
On that note, it is goodbye from me, Russ.
Goodbye from me, Peter Coffey from the Southampton Guild of Role Players.
Goodbye from me, Shane Stacks of Shane Plays.
And goodbye from me, your editor, Darryl.
Apparently, I now have to read this to you. This is the official podcast of Morris's unofficial tabletop RPG news, which you can find at enworld.org. You can find show notes at morris.podbean.com or wherever you found the podcast. If you feel like they deserve it, you can support the show on Patreon. In return, you will receive exclusive bonus content. Just go to patreon.com/Morris. If you're interested in his babbling nonsense, you can follow at Morris on the Twitter. Send your emails to morrispodcast@gmail.com. Not all of your emails, just the ones you want us to see. That's it. I'm bored now. You can go away. Shoo, off you go. Goodbye. Get out of here.